Sufism is the mystical branch of Islam. 1. A Sufi is a Muslim who seeks annihilation of the ego in God. 2. Early history. Edit. The exact origin of Sufism is disputed. Some sources state that Sufism is the inner dimensions of the teachings of Muhammad, whereas others say that Sufism emerged during the Islamic Golden Age from about the 8th to 10th centuries. According to Ibn Khaldun, Sufism was already practiced by the Sahaba, but with the spread of material tendencies, the term Sufi was just applied to those who emphasize the spiritual practice of Islam. 3. Origin. Edit. Ahmet Kara Mustafa describes renunciation zuhd as a widespread form of piety in Muslim communities in the 1st century of Abbasid rule. For Ibrahim ibn Adham al-Bakhiti 777-8 took on an ascetic lifestyle with a radical aversion to mainstream social life. For the followers of the preacher Hasan al-Basri founded a ribat on Abadan Island on the Tigris near Basra. For Kara Mustafa also cites Rabi al-Adawiya, Shaqiq al-Bakhi, al-Darani, Dulnun al-Misri, Yahya ibn Mu'ad al-Razi, and Bayazid Bastami as some of the pioneering figures in the introspective trends that would lead to what would later be called Sufism. 5. Sufis of Baghdad. Edit. A distinct practice of piety associated with introspection, drawing from different practices and ideas, took form in Baghdad in the second half of the 9th century. 4 members of the first generation of Sufis in Baghdad included Harith al-Muhasibi, Abu Hamza al-Baghdadi Abu Sa'id al-Karaz, Abu al-Husayn al-Noori, Jund al-Baghdadi, Rawaim, and Khair and Nasij. 6 of following generation included Abu Bakr al-Shibli, al-Jurayri Rudbari, and Ja'far al-Qaldi. 6. Codification of doctrine needed. Towards the end of the first millennium CE, a number of manuals began to be written summarizing the doctrines of Sufism and describing some typical Sufi practices. 2 of the most notable are Kashf al-Majab, Revelation of the Veiled, of Hawiri, and al-Risala al-Qushayriya, the Message of al-Qushayri. 7. According to the late medieval mystic Jami Abdi Allah ibn Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, died c. 716, was the first person to be called a Sufi. 8. 2 of al-Ghazali's greatest treatises, The Revival of Religious Sciences and The Alchemy of Happiness, argued that Sufism originated from the Quran and was thus compatible with mainstream Islamic thought, and did not in any way contradict Islamic law, being instead necessary to its complete fulfillment. This became the mainstream position among Islamic scholars for centuries, challenged only recently on the basis of selective use of a limited body of texts. Example needed ongoing efforts by both traditionally trained Muslim scholars and Western academics are making al-Ghazali's works available in English translation for the first time. 9. Allowing English-speaking readers to judge for themselves the compatibility of Islamic law and Sufi doctrine. The tomb of Khoya Afak, near Kashgar, China. All Sufi orders claim a direct chain of leadership to Muhammad, through Ali, with the exception of the Naqshbandis, who claim a direct connection to Muhammad through Abu Bakr. In the 11th century, Sufi orders tariqa were instrumental in the institutional spread of Sufism. 10. Muslim Spain. Beginning in the 9th century and continuing throughout the 10th century, Al-Andalus was home to fairly strict, orthodox beliefs and practices. 11. Quranic studies and jurisprudence fiqh were the accepted and promoted types of scholarship that shaped the region's beliefs and practices. Early fuqaha in Spain were somewhat skeptical of philosophical thought as well as of Sufism. In later centuries, especially the 12th and 13th, Sufism became more accepted and somewhat assimilated into Andalusi Islam. 12 scholars have generally seen this later flourishing in 2 different ways. For some, It reflects the influence of the mystical tradition in Cordoba attributed to Ibn Masara. 13 others give exclusive credit to the influence of Eastern mystics, most often including al-Ghazali's thoughts and teachings. 14. One figure in particular has often been credited as being the earliest introduction of Sufism to Spain, Ibn Masara. 15. He lived from 883 to 931 and was born outside of Cordoba. Many consider him to have established the first Sufi school in the province. However, his teachings were outside of the so-called mainstream Sufism that was more common in the East during his lifetime. 16. With Ibn Masara, there was a brief flowering 17 of Sufism in Spain, and later Spanish Sufis reflected his influence on them. After Ibn Masara's death, in 940 his followers fell under heavy persecution under the jurists, who destroyed Ibn Masara's works and also forced his followers to recant. 18. The effects of his thought and that of his disciples would appear again in the 12th and 13th centuries amidst later Sufis such as Ibn Arabi. 19. By the 12th century, shifts towards the acceptance or at least tolerance of philosophy and Sufism into what had previously been strictly orthodox beliefs were occurring. Many people began to read and translate the works of philosophers such as Aristotle and Plato. At the forefront of the philosophical movement in Spain were Ibn Bajjah, Ibn Tufayl, Ibn Rushd, and a Jewish scholar named Ibn Mun. 20. Ibn Tufayl introduced the element of Sufism into this philosophical way of thinking. Andalusi Sufism was at its peak at this time. 21. Also at this time, Eastern Sufism was developing more as a communal movement, whereas that of the West, including in Al-Andalus, it remained largely an individual pursuit. 22. A group of Sufi masters who defended the works of Theosophists, such as Ghazali and al-Qushayri, began emerging in the late 11th and early to mid-12th centuries. Abu al-Abbas ibn al-Arif 1088–1141 was one of the most prominent Sufis in Spain and one of the earliest ones during Sufism's peak in the peninsula. 11. He belonged to what Spanish scholar of Islam, Miguel Asin Palacios, termed the School of Almeria, so named for its geographical location. 23. Ibn al-Arif was one of the first to interpret Ghazali in the West, and he also founded a method of spiritual training called Tariqa. 20. Ibn al-Arif's disciple Ibn Qasi set up a group of religious followers in Portugal and built a monastery in Silves. He authored the Kal al-Nalain, which Ibn Arabi would later write a commentary on. 24. Ibn Barajan d. 1141, who a student and friend of Ibn al-Arif, lived and taught in Seville, but was originally from North Africa, has been called the Ghazali of the West. 25. Ibn Barajan and Ibn al-Arif were both tried for heresy, because their views conflicted with those of the Almoravids in power. However, Ibn Barajan appears to have been more active in using Sufism as a means of challenging Quranic scholars and jurists. 26. Ibn Arabi, another key figure of this period of Sufism in the region, was born in Mursa in 1165 at the beginning of the Almohad reign. He is one of the most important Sufis of Spain, although he like many other Andalusi Sufis, would eventually leave the peninsula and travel throughout North Africa and the East. 27. His works in Andalusia focused mainly on the perfect human individual, monastic metaphysics, and mystical path to spiritual and intellectual perfection. Central themes of Ibn Arabi's were the unity of all beings, or Wadat al-Wujud, and also how God reflects God's self in the world. 28. According to Ibn Arabi, the main practices of Andalusi Sufis included ascesis, poverty, and devotion to the Quran. 29. Not long after the death of Ibn Arabi, Al-Andalus experienced a spiritual aridity. 30. In the mid-14th century. The one exception to that trend was Ibn Abbad al-Rundi 1332–1390, a member of the Shadhiliya order who was born in Rwanda and whose scholarship brought together mystical and juridical paths. 31. His work helped Sufism become more accepted within the Islamic sciences. 32. Although Sufism would no longer directly be a part of Andalusi life, after the Catholic monarchs expelled Muslims from Spain, in the Spanish Christian mystics of the 16th century, such as San Juan de la Cruz and Teresa of Avila, many have seen Sufism's lasting influence in Spain. 33. 13th to 16th century said it. Between the 13th and 16th centuries, Sufism produced a flourishing intellectual culture throughout the Islamic world, a golden age whose physical artifacts are still present. In many places, a lodge known variously as Azwiya, Kanka, or Tek, would be endowed through a pious foundation in perpetuity waqf, to provide a gathering place for Sufi adepts, as well as lodging for itinerant seekers of knowledge. The same system of endowments could also be used to pay for a complex of buildings, such as that surrounding the Süleymaniyye Mosque in Istanbul, including a lodge for Sufi seekers, a hospice with kitchens where these seekers could serve the poor or complete a period of initiation, a library, and other structures. No important domain in the civilization of Islam remained unaffected by Sufism in this period. 34. Sufism was an important factor in the historical spread of Islam, and in the creation of regional Islamic cultures, especially in Africa. 35 and Asia. Recent academic work on these topics has focused on the role of Sufism in creating and propagating the culture of the Ottoman world, including a study of the various branches of the Naqshbandi 36 and Kawati orders 37, and in resisting European imperialism in North Africa and South Asia. 38. Modern historiette. Current Sufi orders include Baha'u'llah, Chishti, Kawati, Naqshbandi, Ni'matullahi, Avesi, Qadriya Naqshbandiyya, Qadiriya Balchishiyya, Qadiriyya, Qalandariyya, Sarwari Qadiri, Shadliyya, Tijaniyya, and Suhrawardiyya. 40. Sufism is popular in such African countries as Morocco and Senegal, where it is seen as a mystical expression of Islam. 41. Sufism is traditional in Morocco, but has seen a growing revival with the renewal of Sufism around contemporary spiritual teachers, such as Sidi Hamza al-Qadiri al-Balchishi. Sufism suffered setbacks in North Africa during the colonial period. The life of the Algerian Sufi master Emir Abd al-Qadir is instructive in this regard. 42. Notable as well are the lives of Amadou Bamba and Hajj Umar Tall in sub-Saharan Africa, and Sheikh Mansur Sharma and Imam Shamal in the Caucasus region. In the 20th century, some more modernist Muslims have called Sufism a superstitious religion that holds back Islamic achievement in the fields of science and technology. 43. A number of Western converts to Islam have also embraced Sufism. Citation needed, sometimes resulting in considerable syncretism or generic spiritualism detached from Islam, as in the case of universal Sufism or the writings of René Guénon or G. I. Gurdjieff. One of the first to return to Europe as an official representative of a Sufi order, and with the specific purpose to spread Sufism in Western Europe, was the Ivan Agueli. Other noteworthy Sufi teachers who were active in the West include Bawa Muhyiddin, Inayat Khan, Natsim al-Haqqani, Javed Nurbakhsh, Bulent Roth, Irina Tweedy, Idris Shah, and Muzaffar Ozak. Currently active Sufi academics and publishers include Llewellyn Vaughan Lee, Naha Mimkeller, Abdullah Nuruddin Durki, Abdul Hakim Murad, Said Wahid Ashraf, and the Franco-Moroccan Fzi Scali. Orientalism. Edit. Orientalists proposed a variety of origin theories regarding Sufism, such as that it originated as an Aryan response to Semitic influence, Buddhism, Neoplatonism, and Christian asceticism or Gnosticism. 44-45. Modern academics and scholars which however, have rejected early Orientalist theories, asserting a non-Islamic origin of Sufism. 46-47-48 Karl Ernst states that the tendency to try and disassociate Islam from Sufism was an attempt by Orientalists to create a divide between what they found attractive within Islamic civilization, i.e. Islamic spirituality, and the negative stereotypes of Islam that were present in Britain. 49-50 Hossein Nasser states that non-Islamic origin theories are false according to the point of view of Sufism. 44 Many have asserted Sufism to be unique within the confines of the Islamic religion, and contend that Sufism developed from people like Bayezid Bastami, who, in his utmost reverence to the Sunnah, refused to eat a watermelon because he did not find any proof that Muhammad ever ate it. 51-52 According to William Chittick, Sufism can simply be described as the interiorization and intensification of Islamic faith and practice. 51 Modern historiette. Current Sufi orders include Baha'u'llah, Chishti, Kawati, Naqshbandi, Ni'matullahi, Avesi, Qadriya Naqshbandiyya, Qadiriya Balchishia, Qadiriyya, Qalandariyya, Sarwari Qadiri, Shadliyya, Tijaniyya, and Suhrawardiyya. 40. Sufism is popular in such African countries as Morocco and Senegal, where it is seen as a mystical expression of Islam. 41 Sufism is traditional in Morocco but has seen a growing revival with the renewal of Sufism around contemporary spiritual teachers, such as Sidi Hamza al-Qadiri al-Balchishi. Sufism suffered setbacks in North Africa during the colonial period. The life of the Algerian Sufi master Emir Abd al-Qadir is instructive in this regard. 42 Notable as well are the lives of Amadou Bamba and Hajj Umar Tall in sub-Saharan Africa, and Sheikh Mansur Sharma and Imam Shamil in the Caucasus region. In the 20th century, some more modernist Muslims have called Sufism a superstitious religion that holds back Islamic achievement in the fields of science and technology. 43. A number of Western converts to Islam have also embraced Sufism. Citation needed, sometimes resulting in considerable syncretism or generic spiritualism detached from Islam, as in the case of universal Sufism or the writings of René Guénon or G. I. Gurdjieff. One of the first to return to Europe as an official representative of a Sufi order, and with the specific purpose to spread Sufism in Western Europe, was the Ivan Agueli.